Ladies and gentlemen, day 194 of Russia's invasion and year 9 of Russia's war against Ukraine. My name is Andriy Shevchenko. On behalf of Mediacentru Ukraine, I would like to welcome all the journalists telling the world about our struggle for freedom. With us today is Vasyl Furman, deputy head of the Council of the National Bank of Ukraine. We'll be discussing the financial health of Ukraine. Pan Vasyl, how would you describe Ukraine's financial state on day 194 of Russia's full-scale invasion? Hello, thank you for the question. I'll be talking about the banking system because we do have the state finance, and that's a separate question, and that is also, we're also working on that one. You know, à la guerre comme à la guerre. But as far as the banking system is concerned, I would say that the banking system, with the support of the National Bank of Ukraine, has adapted to work in conditions in wartime conditions, thanks to the measures that have been taken in the first day, even in the first hours of the full-scale invasion, plus the reforms that had already been ongoing prior to the war for almost 8 years, have given us the opportunity, have given the banking system the opportunity to work without disruptions. We've been working since the first day of the war without days off, without breaks, 24/7. We're saving the funds of both physical persons and legal entities. And I would say that in no country in the world, I think, has the banking system worked as reliably as ours. I think that as an example of the banking system of Ukraine, for many countries will be an interesting, a good case study, a good example of how to prepare and how to work, how to hold these reforms and take measures and take steps. As far as the funds, the money of both persons and legal entities, we seem to enjoy people's trust, and uh, we have gotten an influx of over 224 billion hryvnia in various currencies. The investments of persons have come up. The persons of legal entities have come down a little bit by about 20%. In the credits have fallen down by about 10%. As far as corporate business credits, they have grown by 6.3%, or 32 billion hryvnia. In foreign currencies, the credits have gone down a little bit. These corporate business credits by about 900 million hryvnia. Crediting in Ukraine is developing, as growing, thanks to state programs where the national bank, along with the banking system, is involved. The 579, private 579. We've about 12,000 credit deeds have been made since the start of the war. So the banks will continue in this difficult time to participate in these programs, honor these programs. And we're developing also a new state program set to start on October 1st to activate the secondary residential sales of secondary residential properties, depending on the category of citizens. But we expect it to be a positive impulse. Sorry, can we just take a few moments that seem that they're the most noticeable for the ordinary Ukrainian in the street? Could we start with the reliability of the banks? We haven't seen a collapse of the banks that some have predicted. Additionally, several banks have been taken off the market in these past few months. We're talking about individual instances. Can you tell us about this part of work, how effective that was? This work is effective. Again, I'd like to say that thanks to the reforms that we've put in place for the 8 years prior to the full-scale invasion, the banking system is holding the line, is really holding up. If we look at the number of banks in the second quarter, only one bank has gone bankrupt, but they had problems even prior to the war. The bank knew about these problems, but then conditions were set to the to which the stockholders set to the bank, which the bank failed to honor. Other banks are working. In these months of the war, in the entire banking system, uh, the credit portfolio is about 30%. Is it a high number? Yes, but it had been even higher over the recent years. It was over 50%. When you're talking to the banks, I've been talking to a lot of bankers, state bankers. Um, I remember how prior to the war they were complaining about the reform policy, the different coefficients introduced by the national bank according to the European banking standards. And today they said that thanks to these heavy demands of the national banks, of the national bank prior to the war, they are more or less feeling more or less fine. There are problems, but these are not the sort of problems they were facing in 2014, 2015. And we noticed that the problems with money, with withdrawing or depositing money is not really a problem. Moreover, the state support programs are developing to the extent that is possible. The crediting. What could you tell us about removing Russian banks out of from our market? Yes, in the first days of the war, the National Bank of Ukraine made the decision, and two Russian banks, the Provnest and the old name is Sberbank, Russian Sberbank, the filial of the Sberbank, are now being liquidated. Even prior to that, many months before that, the VTB Bank was taken off the Ukrainian market. So let's say Russian banks with state capital. We do not have Russian banks in the Ukrainian market with state capital. I would like to also say that, look, people trust the banking system. At the same time, the state has also taken up the responsibility in in over the period of the war plus 3 months. It guarantees the investments of if should the bank bankrupt. So not the limits that they had previously, the 200,000, or when the limits were then expanded, 400,000, 600,000 hryvnia, the guaranteeing the investments to the private persons. But today, this sum is not limited. So all of the investments are guaranteed. So people should feel calm about their money. And again, the banks are feeling, in spite of the fact that there are some problems that have to do with servicing credits, there are economic problems in the economics and the business. We know that according to the National Bank that we expect serious inflation. We'll come back to this for a minute. We have a question from the room. Yes, please. Hello, Natalia Staroprava, Media Center Ukraine. And I'll ask two connected questions. The first one is, what are the financial influx of international support to Ukraine? Are they sufficient? And in what scenarios can we expect to see a real devaluation of the hryvnia? Thanks for the question. I'll answer because the first question has to do more with the Ministry of Finance, and according to the Ministry of Finance, the influx of international financial assistance will make up over 30 billion hryvnia. This number can be higher because both the president, the prime minister, and the Ministry of Finance, the National Bank, we're constantly working with the various countries, with the international financial organizations to provide external financial support. We know that in August we got $4.6 billion in support. We also know this is a high number. We're also working with the International Monetary Fund to institute a new cooperation program. We've heard from the head of the National Bank that we would love the new program to encompass 15 to 20 billion dollars. So we have to understand that this program will encompass will last for several years. It's strategic for our state because it's not just money. Cooperation with the IMF is not just money. A, it's money, but also B, it's a green light for other investors, and C, it's reform, and D is the experience. The IMF is working with numerous countries in their reforms, and the experience that they have in other countries can also be given to our state. Can also be we can also make use of it in our country. So for a swift post-war recovery. Can we switch to the stability of the national currency? You mentioned that we expect very serious uh, internal product drop. So there are serious factors that will set the stability of the Ukrainian currency in question. What can you say about the forecast? As far as forecast, okay, let's be honest. The National Bank doesn't forecast the currency rate of the Ukrainian hryvnia. We changed the rate policy. We fixed the rates. The official rate is 36.6. We should point out that this correction of the rate worked and had a quick effect. Today, the difference between the fixed rate of 36.6 is within 10%. I will remind our viewers that prior to this correction, the difference was sometimes even 20%, 18%. So we have this relative stability in the currency market. What do we want? If we want the situation to continue to persist, we really have to take a lot of steps. Right now, in the National Bank, we've been talking a lot about it. We've even given our proposals to the Cabinet of Ministers. These steps have to do with the fact that we have to, for instance, optimize state expenditures, increase the incomes of the state budget, the internal obligations. So, because the Ministry of Finance is attracting less than they are paying out, we have to really reverse the. Sorry. In order not to ask you about the forecast, I will ask you, perhaps rephrase the question. In what conditions will the National Bank of Ukraine review its policy or review the rate that we have at the moment? How do you make those decisions? Okay, this is a question to the leadership of the National Bank. The board of the National Bank, as far as the mechanism is concerned, it's the board of the National Bank that changes the rates. So we analyze, we see the disbalance. The fewer the disbalances, the less the disbalance, the lower the likelihood that the National Bank will change or increase its rate policy. Secondly, the National Bank says that in future it would like to come back to the floating rate setting. But for this, we need Ukrainian experts to work, the Ukrainian economy to work. Because today, let's give it a little time and see that, we see that the National Bank, in spite of the correcting the rates and the selling off, and our sales have gone down, but at the same time, it's significant still, and we need the Ukrainian economy to work, the Ukrainian export to increase. We need a clear understanding of the situation in these. And how close are we to those conditions? How close are we to those conditions as of today? As of today, the policy of the fixed rates is working. It's showing good result, and in conditions of war, in conditions of today, it has more pros than cons for a state. The National Bank's taken maximum steps in terms of the market, because there have been different conditions. When for instance, when we told the banks not to advertise the rates, let's just say that the reform of about 2 years ago, the non-banking financial market is now being controlled by the bank, and it can be controlled with the banking, can be compared with the banking market at the level of 2014, 2015, which also requires a lot of reform. We've started the reform. We're taking a number of steps in order to make this market transparent, reliable, and that the interests of the consumers are protected. Did you see practical consequences from removing the rates from the electronic announcement boards in the banking and exchange booths? Again, as an expert, yes, we did. I think that. Okay, again, here's the thing. This decision to remove the advertisement is one of a set of 10 steps that were used by the board of the National Bank. We have to also talk about the introduction of closed circuit surveillance and the National Bank surveillance of the currency exchange booths. The taxing, the taxation, we've seen how this market is very minimally taxed, or it is. This market needs reform. The National Bank has gone through this question. Obviously, there are questions that have to do with some legal reforms. But I think that the overall set of measures that we have taken, both by the National Bank and the various laws passed by Parliament, will have a positive effect. A final question: what can you say about the banking system of our enemy, of the Russian Federation? About the stability of the banking system and the financial health, financial well-being of our enemy, of our opponent. This is a very difficult question. We all want that the sanctions that are being used against the enemy gave quick short-term effect. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. They will have its effect in the mid range or in the long term. The Russian Federation has their economy, their banking system has been pushed back and will continue to be pushed back. I mean, it's a process depending on the sector, but decades behind. As of today, where we're seeing that again, there was a high rate of about 20% rate. This affected the crediting processes, particularly for real estate. There's serious decline in the crediting. Small banks, regional banks, are sensing problems with the income. Their central bank is responding very quickly, introducing temporary administrations, and these banks will be eventually liquidated. So we have to look in the longer term. The banking system and the economy will be degrading in the future. The degradation has begun. Thank you. With us was Vasyl Furman, Deputy Chair of the Board of the National Bank of Ukraine. Thank you for this conversation. Thank you. I encourage you to watch our announcements of the Media Center Ukraine stands with Ukraine.